In the early 1990s, all across this country, people were getting ready for America's bicentennial, which was going to be in 1976. Alexandria, of course, was no exception. And in 1973, there was a little ad in the Daily News asking for anyone who would be willing to help create a history, an authoritative history of Alexandria, to come to a meeting. And I decided I would go. And it was at the home of Jean Phillips Harshberger, who I later learned had placed the ad and paid for it herself. I decided I would go because the town was so kind to me as a child, and the Juniata Valley schools prepared me well for college. And even though we all have debts we can never repay, I thought I should try. And that's where my story begins. At the advertised meeting, there was a group of forward-thinking people from Alexandria and surrounding, and there was this discussion about parades and pageants and all those traditional things. But the emphasis for this committee was to produce a small booklet, and because there were no other such authoritative things. So there were 3 of us who volunteered to do that job. Well, myself and 3 others. Jean Phillips Harshberger, Sarah Howell-Zabriskie, and Ruth Rischel Leitner. I had no idea how intertwined our lives would become and what great friends we would be. As I recall, for several years we met at least once a week, and at various locations, libraries, courthouse, and so forth, or at somebody's house, to research all the points of our outline. And it became apparent that the little historical booklet was going to turn into a big book. We felt the whole story should be told, so that's what we agreed to do, but we had no idea how hard it would be or how time-consuming. We have to remember this was before computers and that sort of thing. The goal was to finish it by October of 1975, with the hope that the citizens would buy it and read it and be better prepared for the bicentennial. So we have no way of knowing how effective that was, but when we got the book done, many copies were sold, but it did result in this museum. We had 1,000 copies printed and they sold out in 3 weeks. It went into reprint and was a larger edition. And in 2000, Jean and I, with the help of Mary and Sue McAwee, did a 25-year update. And that's the book that's on sale at the present time. Every book sold contained a very large, detailed map, and specifically drawn by Dr. Frank Zabriskie, who was Sarah's husband. Now, during the research, 3 things of note happened. As we were interviewing older town folks, they would say, "Oh, you know, we have a thus and such in the attic. Would you like to see it?" We said, "Oh, sure." And they said, "Well, we'll have to bring it down and clean it up, but we'll show it to you sometime. So just remember that, because I come back to that after a while." And some of the people had antiques, valuable things in their house that we would love to have seen, but they were in use. So then Sarah's husband, Frank, the astronomer, bought a box of diaries at a sale. He studied weather maps. And we had a lady in Alexandria named Mary Bellman who was very nosy, and she wrote about everything, about every meeting, even if she couldn't be there. She made it her business to find out what that was. And there's Mary. She has no descendants, that's why I can say that. And so we worked to, with Mary's impossible handwriting, to do a condensed version of it, and then we wrote it. It's the social history of Alexandria. Things that did not belong in a history book, about people, how people sat with the deceased overnight and all that kind of thing. So one of the women in Huntington County named Jo McMean, who had a radio show, and she was part owner of the newspaper. And she took great interest in these stories about Mary Bellman, and she asked us to write columns for her newspaper. I can't remember if it was bi-monthly or twice a month, but At any rate, when that was all done, we were able to produce a book called Mary Bellman's Alexandria, and it's filled with interesting pictures. So for the day of the book, we did manage to get it finished by October of 1975, and we had a presentation here on the library grounds, and it was a very big deal. Congress people and all those people came. And we decided to approach the library board to see if we might put a little display in the upstairs, because this space was no longer in use. In 1948, Alexandria schools and Petersburg schools merged to form Juniata Valley. So this auditorium no longer held graduation classes and so forth. So the library board agreed. So our little display grew a little bigger, and then we put in a few more things. And it really is the old analogy of a camel got in the tent, because we did a little bit and pushed in a little further, pushed in a little further, and they kept granting us more space, and finally there was a camel in the tent. It's just wonderful that we have this place, because we are guests of the library board. We do not pay rent or electricity, but they have a charter that this always has to be used for the good of the community. And so we feel we help them complete their goal as well. Early records show that John Hart became an Indian trader passing through this area in 1744, and this was his regular stopping place, and he salted and watered his horses here, and used a hollow log. And this area became known as Hartslog, or the Hartslog settlement. And the first church in this whole area of Pennsylvania that was developed was Hartslog Presbyterian Church. There were eras in Alexandria that went from a frontier outpost settlement following the French and Indian War to a small town that was laid out in 1793. And then it became a canal town with lots of warehouses and taverns, and to a railroad town, and to a town with no canal and no railroad, to the little charming town that it is today. It's a bedroom community and a location for a wonderful industry. We knew it as the Blair Corporation or the Mead Corporation. Now it's ACO Brands, but there's a very large factory at the end of town. America's small town, especially blessed to have a library since 1900. There were 7 founders of the museum, 6 of whom have passed away. William Swaggart, Ted Cullinan, Ruth Rischel Leitner, Jean Phillips Harshberger, Sarah Hal Zabriskie, and Jack Metzger. And I myself am the only one living. The offshoot of the museum is the annual homecoming festival known as Hartslog Day. It's considered one of the premier small-town festivals in this region. And not long after that first display in the library in 1975, which we count as the first Hartslog Day, Don and Margie Litzenberger chaired the event and did for a long time, and they have both passed away now, but Rochelle Hopsinger took over and shadowed Don and has continued to be the chairman of the festival. So my conclusion is that dreams do come true, because I know my family is coming home for Hartslog Day, as many families do. And it's always the second Saturday in October. You're welcome to join us for another wonderful Hartslog Day and in the historic town of Alexandria. Don't forget to go to the second floor of the library for a trip back in time at the museum. The Smithsonian in Washington is known as the nation's attic. So it's fair to say that Hartslog Heritage Museum is Alexandria's attic. Hope you will come and explore the treasures here. Thank you.